We are joined this morning by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Madam Speaker, welcome to This Week.
Good morning.
Hey, let's start out with this COVID crisis. It's pretty clear we are failing in this country to stop the spread. How do we fix it?
We can fix it by passing the HEROES Act, which we haven't. A major pillar of it is to open our economy by testing, tracing, treating, isolating, wearing masks, washing your hands. There is a way to do it. And instead of what the administration did, deny, delay, death, it's time for this administration to take this seriously. As Dr. Fauci said, we have a serious problem ahead. Take this seriously. We are 4% of the world's population. We are 25% of the cases and the deaths. 25%. We have the worst record of any country in the world, and the president says we're making progress or whatever. So this is life and death, and we do have a plan to again reverse this trend as well as to kill off this virus. We don't have a vaccine and we don't have a cure. God willing and science enabling, we will sometime soon. But until we do, we have the tools to halt the growth of this.
Is it time to mandate the wearing of masks across the country?
Oh, I definitely long overdue for that. And my understanding that the Centers for Disease Control has recommended the use of masks, but not required it because they don't want to offend the president. And the president should be example. You know, real men wear masks. Be an example to the country and wear the mask. Not only it's not about protecting yourself, it's about protecting others and their families.
Of course, we're also dealing with the economic fallout right now. You have said that another economic package is necessary, but yet you have not engaged in direct negotiations with the Treasury Secretary. Why not?
Well, when we have a negotiation, it's the end of the agreement. The committees of jurisdiction have their discussions. When they reach an impasse, it rises to the four corners of leadership, and when that reaches an impasse, we negotiate with the administration. But I have a number of the Republicans calling me and saying, in the next bill, can we have this? In the next bill, can we have... They know we have to have a bill. They know we have to build it. Chairman of the Fed has said, unless we do something significant, we're going to have a worse recession. He has said state and local governments provide jobs and services. I recommend that to the Congress. Even Secretary Mnuchin knows there has to be legislation. They'll be ready. And they say they wanted a pause. Well, again, paying the rent doesn't take a pause. Putting food on the table doesn't take a pause. Having no job doesn't take a pause. They have hurt our economy. But we have a solution. Let me just tell you this. It's 3 pillars. One is honor our heroes. That's why it's named that. And in there we have resources for state and local government so they can keep our heroes on the job, healthcare providers, first responders, transportation, sanitation, teachers.
I want to turn
them on the job, and you have to know this. All the money that is in there, and you go to speaker.gov/Heroes Act and look up where you live or have lived and the rest, and see how many resources go into those communities in order to cover the outlays for the coronavirus expenses, A, or B, the loss of revenue from those places. And remember this, all of that money that is out there, and it is very significant, is half of what the Republicans put onto the national debt. Half of what they spent, give a tax cut, 83% of the benefits going to the top 1%. And they complain about it, but they'll come around. They'll come.
I want to turn now to that rather startling report in the New York Times that appeared yesterday. We're going to show it on the screen right now. That Russia secretly offered Afghan militants bounties to kill U.S. troops. It reports that American intelligence officials have concluded that a Russian military intelligence unit secretly offered bounties to Taliban-linked militants for killing coalition forces in Afghanistan, including targeting American troops. The intelligence finding was briefed to President Trump, and the White House National Security Council discussed the problem at an interagency meeting in late March. Officials developed a menu of potential options along with an escalating series of sanctions, but the White House has yet to authorize any step. Now, the Director of National Intelligence put out a statement late last night denying that the president had been briefed. The president has said that as well, but not denying the intelligence. You're a member of that so-called Gang of Eight that gets intelligence. Were you aware of these reports?
No, and we have called for a report to the Congress on this. This is as bad as it gets. And yet the president will not confront the Russians on this score, denies being briefed, whether he is or not. His administration knows, and our allies some of our allies who will work with us in Afghanistan have been briefed and accept this report. Just as I've said to the president, with him all roads lead to Putin. I don't know what the Russians have on the president politically, personally, financially, or whatever it is, but he wants to ignore. He wants to bring them back into the G8 despite the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine, despite what they yielded to him in Syria, despite his intervention into our election, which is well documented by our intelligence community, and despite now possibly this allegation, which we should have been briefed on.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. Do you believe that the president hasn't been briefed on this? And secondly, how would you explain the New York Times is saying it was actually in the president's daily brief? Perhaps he didn't read it. How would you explain if the president weren't briefed on this?
Because the president wants to ignore any allegation against Russia. As I've said to him in that meeting when I'm pointing to him in a blue suit, with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. Russia's never gotten over the humiliation they suffered in Afghanistan, and now they're taking it out on us, our troops. This is totally outrageous. You would think that the minute the president heard of it, he would want to know more instead of denying that he knew anything. Now, if in fact, we'll find out if he has been briefed, and it was in his daily brief, but if it were not, what does that say about the concern that those who briefed the president have about not going anywhere near the Russia issue with this president? This is appalling. This is beyond, the list is a long one in terms of his ignoring what Russia has done. You see what he is a gift to Russia to diminish our leadership in NATO, diminish our troops in Germany, all a gift to Putin. Something is very wrong here. But this must have an answer.
You've raised that several times now. You said you don't know what the Russians have on President Trump, but do you believe they have something on him?
Well, how would you explain his refusal to even to ignore again and again the intelligence that puts right at the Russian doorstep the involvement into our elections, for example? Now he's saying this is fake news. Why would he say that? Why wouldn't he say, let's look into it and see what this is? Giving money to the Taliban, a bounty on the lives of our troops in Afghanistan. How do you answer to the families of those whose family members are serving there? And he's engaged in peace negotiations with the Taliban, and he's kissing up to Putin in every way, saying he should be in the G7, even though he annexed Crimea and caused death and destruction in Ukraine. So totally irresponsible. Something is wrong with this picture. But putting that other aside for the moment, let's just dwell on this. We hear also that the administration is considering diplomatic response to this or sanctions to this. Well, they either know about it or they don't know about it. The American people need to know what that is.
Before we go, I do want to ask you a little bit about the 2020 presidential campaign. You've seen all these polls this week showing Vice President Biden opening up a lead, former Vice President Biden opening a lead over President Trump. President Obama has warned Democrats not to get complacent. What is the greatest threat to Joe Biden's chance right now?
Well, I do believe that we have to put one good day in front of another. I take nothing for granted. 128 days, no wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election. And again, we saw what overconfidence did in 2016 and the horror that exacted onto the country. This election has everything at stake. Anytime we've said this is the most crucial election of our time, we thought it was true, but it just keeps getting more so. So I do believe it's going to be as long as we protect the vote. So if you ask what stands in the way, not the enthusiasm of the American people, not the excellence of our candidate for President of the United States. We're so proud of Joe Biden. He will be a great president. And all of the other candidates, I'm so proud of our House candidates. Hopefully we also win the Senate, which is very possible. But protecting the vote from the voter suppression that the Republicans know they can't win on the natural, so they have to engage in voter suppression and stand in. You look at their playbook and you'll see what they're afraid of, and that is the votes of the American people. We'll own the ground, we'll mobilize, we'll get out the vote, and we will have a victorious election come November, putting one good day in front of another.
Madam Speaker, thanks for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.